All right, in this video, I'm going to do a quick market update, and then I'm going to go over 10 stocks in 10 different groups. All right, so looking at the market, we're looking pretty good. Our trend condition, looking at the NASDAQ 100, we're above all key moving averages from even the 5-day, the 10-day, 20-day, 50-day, 200-day. And not just the NASDAQ, the S&P, it's the same thing. Russell 2000 above all key moving averages. The Dow, we're above all except for the 5-day, and the NASDAQ composite, we're above everything. So looking really good. Looking at the NASDAQ net 52-week high-low list, we're growth stock traders, so that's why I'm highlighting the NASDAQ. If you take all the stocks that made 52-week highs versus 52-week lows, we're still in the positive for daily, weekly, and our weekly numbers have been improving and our monthly numbers improving. So that's really good. It's not just the NASDAQ. Even the NYSE is positive. Looking at the total market, looks even better than the NASDAQ. So that's really good. Looking at breadth, this is total market breadth, something you could just find on FinViz. The 10-day and 20-day, 74%. We haven't seen numbers like that since coming off the April kind of rally that we had. Real strong, powerful move on that around that follow-through day. That's when we had numbers like we're seeing right now. So that just shows, a lot of stuff is participating. And looking at the NASDAQ's breadth, it's not as strong as what you see there, but it's still 62, 64%, above 50% for the 50-day. So even the NASDAQ is powerful in breadth. Now, it's not on this dashboard, but just looking at, I track this daily, the number of stocks that are making 4% moves versus 4% down moves. And, we have more 4% gainers than we do 4% losers. So, and it's been like that pretty much coming off of the July lows. So it's pretty strong. Today's ratio is 1.29. Really powerful around, the follow through day and the day before, looking at 4 and 4.62. So strong. Our up down volume, you could see today was almost 2, over the week, 1.7, and over the month, 1.3. The advanced decline ratio is above 1, which for most of even in here, April, May, June, it wasn't. So, that's just showing you how much is participating. The last time we saw the AD ratio looking like this was, again, coming out of the correction back in early April. So bottom line is the market is looking good. Everything is participating. The NASDAQ 100 looked really good today. We had this strong, powerful up move, getting above the 50-day, not at new highs like the other indexes, but we held up, and you could see the higher lows here tightening up, and then today kind of pushing through that to this over this prior high. So that looks really good to me. All right, so let's go to the RS dashboard. And I'm just going to look at what things have been doing since coming off the low. Okay, so in the big picture market pulse, a lot of times I go through kind of all the time frames. I'm not going to do that on this video. And it's been growth, NASDAQ 100, Russell 1000 Growth Fund, NASDAQ Composite, and the Russell 2000 Growth Fund. Top 4 kind of indexes that I track in here. And so that's really showing you since the lows, that's where the action has been. Even though everything's been kind of doing well, S&P 500 has been doing really well too. And then, back in first place, we got technology again. So XLK here looking really strong, almost more than double what everything else is doing. So it's clearly that's where the growth is right here. And then going down to industry groups, again, same thing we saw in April, May, and early June, right? Semiconductors. We have software kind of back in the mix. The memory names, AXTI, not AXTI, SanDisk has been kind of leading the way there. STX. And cybersecurity. Now, was doing strong, was holding up and doing really well, even when semis were getting beat down and memory names were. Also, AI robotics. And, before, earlier in the year, before it kind of topped, materials are back, metals and mining and gold names and whatnot. So I'm actually going to share a name on that at the end of the video. Software's been back, and software was coming back before. So we've been seeing after software was beaten down pretty bad, and now software's looking good again. We even have some oil in there, some aero defense in there, and so that's kind of where the strength has been. Now let's dive into the RS scanner. And all right, so first I'm going to kind of pull up. This is kind of our blended, looking at, multiple time frames, 1 year, 3 months, 6 months. And, you have health technology for sector, subsector, health services, and technology, kind of the top 3 areas, right? And then, but if you look at this from the July 29th lows, tech. All right, tech's number 1 again. And then you have non-energy minerals. Now let's look at industry groups here. And we have, pharma. We have a lot of those medical names that have been doing really well over the past few weeks. We got oil and gas, staffing and employment services, computer hardware, which includes those memory names. We have some banks and some financials in there. And, semis is still further back because they were beaten down so much. So here's semis. And here's hardware, equipment, and parts. So that's some of those other areas that were leading before kind of the breakdown started in June. Now let's do the same thing. Let's look at from July 29th low. It's really been dominated by the metals and mining kind of names, computer hardware, which has our memory names, oil and gas. We have semis again, electrical equipment and parts, and hardware, equipment and parts, some more oil and gas. So these are the top areas, top 20 areas of the market right here. And, IBD, William O'Neill would really highlight and focus on the top 40. So it doesn't need to be necessarily the top 10, but, this top 40 is where you want to be. And then you see some of those other areas, biotech, software, a lot of the medical areas, some more, communication equipment. So you see some of those other areas that have had big names. All right, so with that being said, let's kind of dive into our first name. First name I'm looking at is STX. All right, and the thing that caught my eye with STX is, of course, you're going to notice with every single name I highlight, big earnings. Not just big earnings. We have triple-digit earnings, but we also have great estimates, right? And it looks like it's accelerating. 150% estimate, 200%, 300%, 591%. And then we have sales. So this isn't just, William O'Neill talks about this, not just seeing names that have big earnings from cost cutting, right? That's not going to be a growth name. Eventually that's going to end. But you have the growth, 48%, 56%, 95%, 148%. So we're seeing the acceleration. And you see it not just in the estimates, you see it leading up to this most recent quarter. You had 20%, 44%, 48%. So, I almost look at sales. Usually, sometimes you'll see a name lag in the earnings, but the sales are starting to accelerate, and then the earnings will come in. So, and you look down here at fund ownership. Look, funds are piling in. It's 13% on the last reported quarter I have in here. And so, also look at the price action. Right, it started tightening up right around the 50-day. Right, and we have these higher lows, and now it looks like we're kind of breaking out through. We're getting ready to, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do tomorrow, kind of break through here the 945, 950 range right in here, And so STX is a name I've been watching for a long time, and it's a name that's performed, right? This is not a new name. I mean, look at this run. But it's clearly saying it's not over, right? Like how many times right here we went higher, and here we kind of grinded higher here. So I mean, I would not be surprised if this name goes higher, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if the move ends. But this is a name that I'm almost, the way everything's looking, I'm going to say the opposite: innocent till proven guilty. Right? If you position size appropriately, you take the loss, you move on to the next name. So that's STX. That's my first name. And STX is in hardware. It's in that memory group. And some of the other names, computer hardware. Let's see some other names in there. And let's, SanDisk, right? We've talked about that. I've talked about Dell, HPE, a bunch of these other big names. So this is just another name in that group. If you miss some of those other names and you're looking for to get exposure in computer hardware. Let's move on to an aerospace and defense name, ATRO. This was a big mover today. And you can see here we're kind of breaking out to new highs. Same thing, you're going to notice, we have big earnings. We just had 1,000% earnings. And these are negative earnings, positive earnings. And sales, 27%. And it looks like we're still continuing, estimates look good. Fund ownership looks pretty good. And, we kind of the same thing. We're kind of around the 50-day, it tightened up. We have higher lows, and now we're breaking out to higher highs. So, depending on your time frame, and the type of trader you are, we're right around the longer-term position traders. William O'Neill, David Ryan, they wouldn't buy a name more than 5% from kind of that breakout point. So maybe this name pulls back in, forms a little handle here. We get a nice cup with handle. That would be nice. So definitely keep this on your radar. Looking at it on the weekly chart, I mean, look at that. That's beautiful. And this is, I was going to do a whole post on this. Sometimes when in doubt, you just got to zoom out and look at the weekly time frame. All right. Sure, you trying to get a precision entry, we dive back into the daily chart, even an intraday chart. But I mean, look at this. This is what you wanted. This is a nice trend. All right, so ATRO, and that's aerospace and defense name. Let's see what other names are in there. And you got some other names. KTOS was an older name. I used to. Ooh, that doesn't look good. All right, let's move on to our next. An oil and gas name, PBF. All right, breaking out to new highs right here. And again, big earnings, good estimates, big sales. And it went from negative. This is almost like a turnaround story here, a sales turnaround story where we went negative, then positive with 11%, but then boom, big positive, 56% on the most recent earnings right here. And so we kind of shook out a little bit right after earnings, and it looks like that kind of got settled and buyers stepped back in. We didn't break the prior low, which is good. It kind of held up, even though I didn't like that big volume kind of sell off there for a week, but it's back up at new highs. I mean, this I like this name. Let's zoom out real quick. I mean, it's in an uptrend. Look at this. Higher lows, higher highs, and now we're even breaking out to a higher high now. So, I mean, it's a nice name. If you're interested in oil and gas, look at the RS too. You're going to 1 year RS. This is generally what, if you're IBD, Investor Business Daily, William O'Neill's How to Make Money with Stocks, standard, 1 year RS here. They also, Market Surge now shows 3 month and 6 month. My RS is even stricter though, because theirs looks at is rating like 11 out of 11,000 stocks in the total market. I have that much in my back end, but I wanted to kind of get rid of a lot of stocks that don't meet my criteria. So I'm weighting these scores within about 3,000 stocks. So when you see a high rating here, it's going to be even higher likely in Market Surge. All right, let's move on to my next name is Frog. It's a software name. Now, just to let everyone know, I'm not a guy that's usually diversified. This is just something fun I wanted to do, just because everyone shares kind of the same names in the growth trading world, and I was like, you know what, I'm seeing some names from across a lot of different groups. It's a very different market right now than kind of April and May, when it was like there was no reason to be in anything other than semiconductors and computer hardware. And I'm not a spread. Have a super diversified. I'm a concentration. I could be in a name and 20% of my account is in that one name, and so I kind of go hard and heavy in the leading industry groups, right? But this is kind of fun, just to kind of see what else is out there across other industry groups, especially as we transition, because we're only a week or two from July 29th low, and the NASDAQ technically is not up to all-time highs yet. So it's one of those things where it's nice to kind of see how everything's going to shake out across other groups. So Frog, let's get to that real quick. And let's see here. I got this up. And here we go. So we had negative earnings. We're getting positive. It looks like we're accelerating into positive territory. But for right now, it's the sales that are driving. It's the sales that are going to help get those improvement in earnings as well. And not our best one, but still good. We still have some good sales, good earnings. I'd like to see when the data gets in there for this most recent earnings, what the fund ownership kind of looked like. I didn't like that it declined slightly, only by a couple, but yeah, I mean, we're getting up to highs right here. I like how we're kind of tightening, and we held up. We had this big day today off the 50-day. We found support here, so I like this little area. Let's see here. Average daily range 6%. Okay, this is we're tightening up here on the right side. That's what I want to see. Tightening up the right side, breaking out around 100 to highs. It'd be really nice if we get some tightness in here before it kind of takes off, to give you an area to put your stop right below that point. So, all right, that's Frog. Let's move on to the next one. Is an industrial name. I almost never look at names like this, but at the end of the day, if the growth is there, of course, I will say you want to be with the leading industry groups, right? Because kind of all boats kind of rise with the tide. Same thing with the index. Indexes are doing well. Most stocks are doing well. It's the same thing. If you're in an industry group that's hot, it kind of pulls. You're going to get a lot more growth out of it. But look at MTRN. Hold on, let me get the MTRN up. I got to figure out why that's not MTRN. Look at these sales again. 42% growth. Yeah, it's going to drop a little bit. That's somewhat concerning, but it's still high. It looks like it's going to maintain good sales growth, good earnings growth. So we have fund ownership is increasing. And look at this tight area. So we had a nice reaction to earnings. We hit the highs. We're not selling off. Look, volume's kind of decreasing. I mean, wow, that's beautiful. I mean, this is how I like to trade right here. So I'd be buying kind of around 298, breaking out here. I'd set my stop, 6% right here. I know some people like to keep it really tight at low of the day and have like a 3-4% stop, but I almost like, because this is where I know that if the trade comes back and kind of breaks the low as it breaks higher into this tight area, this little handle here, this tightness, then I know I'm wrong, without a doubt. But when you put stops at low of the day, yeah, you're wrong and you get out, but it'll shake you out more and then run higher. But when you're at a technical level like this, oh, that's nice. So this is MTRN. It's an industrial name, RS93. Looks pretty good. Since the coming off the lows, almost 50% here in this nice run up. So, all right, next name we're going to look at is AUGO. Back when the metals and mining were kind of going last year into earlier this year, I was looking at this name. So still got a lot of room to get back to the highs. And, I don't like looking at charts like this. I like my charts to look more like this, nice and smooth. And I would like to buy out of tight action like this, get the nice trend, or in this little handle area. So we don't have that, but you can't deny these earnings, these sales, the fund ownership, and that's where strength is, right? We looked at leading industry groups earlier, and it was, let's see here, coming off of July 29th. Look, we got precious metals. So, maybe if AUGO kind of tightens up here and gives a nice spot to buy after this strong strength, it would be nice. But that's a name to watch right there. Next one is Form. I mean, I wanted to talk AXTI. Maybe I'll pull up AXTI in a second. It's a semi-name. I'm just trying to share some different names than kind of everyone's talking about. And look at here again, sales 31%, next estimates 30 in the 30s to 60% in sales. Triple digit EPS that's positive, right? Not negative. And fund ownership grew almost 20%. The last two quarters. I mean, that's amazing. And why do I like this? The time to buy this name was, as it kind of gapped up above. It would have been hard to get in there. But, in this tight area even, and setting your low right at the that's how I like to do it, right? Here's a technical area. And so, let's see here. Probably could have got an 8%. Is this a higher ADR name? No, not too bad, 6%. But yeah, this is a nice name to get into. So this is Form, and that's a semi name. Let's look at AXTI. This is kind of this is going off of, this isn't part of our list, but let's just look at AXTI too. I actually like this, right? I like this powerful movement. We get above the 50. If it holds above this 50-day, this can, and it tightens up in here, this could give you a nice way to get into AXTI, right? Volume decreases below average, and then we get an explosive move on volume, and we get a tight area to try to enter this. Now, this is a high. Look at that ATR percent, 13%. The ADR, 12 points. This is completely opposite of Form. So that's why I wanted to show Form. Not the opposite, just, less volatile, just in the swings. This bar alone, each day it's moving 12, 15%. It's pretty wild. But I mean, you can't deny this name. I mean, look at the earnings, 200%. Look at the estimates, 700%, 200%. Look at the sales, triple-digit sales. Look at the fund ownership growth. We're 80% growth. I mean, this is that's why, even though it was beaten down, I mean, when you see, historically, you see a name that drops like this, 75% from the highs, the way that it was looking, it's usually over, right? Like there's a new batch of leaders, but I don't know. I wouldn't count this out yet, especially with those earnings and sales. And now we have earnings behind us too, so we'll have to see here. It's definitely something to keep on the watch list. All right. Next name I have it's an electrical equipment and parts name, and that's NVT. All right, so we already got earnings out of the way. 97%, 50% sales. Sales looking good through estimates. Earnings look good the next 2 quarters. Not sure why December's is such a drop. Fund ownership, it looks good. And we kind of tightened up once we got above 15. It looks like we're kind of marching higher. So we'll have to see what NVT can do here. I like this tightness, and I like how it was on low volume. And it looks like the volume came in on these 2 days here as it kind of pulled out of this tight area. That would have been, somewhere in here would have been a nice place to could have set your stop right below the lows here and below the 50. So, and that would have been your, I'm wrong, get out. So we'll have to see if NVT gives us another entry point here. And now NVT's electrical equipment and parts. And that was an area that was doing well and is related with AI and whatnot. All right, next name is COHR. And I kind of want to look at APH real quick. All right. Pulling back on earnings. Maybe this isn't the name I wanted to see. But, I mean, it's worth keeping on the watch to see if we can hold these lows here. We'll have to see how this turns up after earnings, since we just had earnings. But 243%, 33% sales. Looking like it's going to stay strong, though, going through the next 3 quarters. Look at this fund ownership. So I think it was that. But I'm not liking... we'll have to see if this can tighten up here. So look at the trend before with COHR. Time to get into this name was October of 2020. October 2025. That's the time. Ride this nice trend. And APH. Let's look at APH, kind of part of the same group. Looks like it's pulling back too. This is tough. I just don't like this whipsaw, kind of wide and loose in this kind of range here. We just had earnings kind of get out of the way. Volume's decreasing. I don't know. We can see if what it can do. But again, another name with funds kind of piling in, big earnings, big sales. Just the price action is not there yet. But if it does resolve and go higher, look at how nice. This is probably why what is it, like survivorship bias? Whatever. I remember how nice and tight. I mean, look at that. That's beautiful. I just remember what it was before, and so you never know. This wide and loose here, though, not a fan. That's not part of our 10, though. All right, and let's look at... And this was hardware, equipment, and parts, too. This is kind of a different group. There was a bunch of names, but basically the two that I talked about are COHRs and APH, or hardware, equipment, and parts. But there's some names in here. Let's kind of scroll through. Rel's a name I've been looking at. All right, let's keep it moving. An oil and gas name, NESR, that just had earnings. Looked beautiful right before earnings. I wanted to get in. I wanted to buy it right in here, but it had earnings. And so I did not get in this name. But I'm liking this action, right? We had earnings. It's holding up. Volume's drying up. I'm the type of guy that if it comes through here at 37, I'll buy it. And if it doesn't go much lower, I might be able to. I might do low of day. I might do a split stop where I put one in the. I'll have to see how it plays out. But I'm really liking kind of buying this if it comes in on strength and we get a big volume kind of through here at 37. But NESR, look again, like this is an oil and gas name. Look at these triple-digit earnings, double-digit sales, 60%, 80%. Look at the fund ownership. I love this name. It had a nice long base here, holding up nicely on the 50-day. And it has history of trending nicely, right? Look at that, trending the 20-day. Beautiful. So that's NESR. All right, I think that's the list of 10. There were two software names, not part of the 10, that I wanted to look at, that I was looking at earlier. NBIS, this was a name I talked about earlier. Doesn't have the earnings yet, right? Negative earnings, doesn't look good. So it's not an O'Neill name, but it is. I mean, look, I can't ignore these sales. I mean, 450%, and this isn't on like a million. This is 582 million. I mean, this is significant amount of sales. Okay, this is not where we're looking at, 1 million in sales. It's quite a bit. And look at the funds have been pouring into this name. In just like a year, they've doubled. And again, it did well in 2025. Really, and it's moving to new highs. I mean, I like it. I like it. NBIS. And then I was looking at Shopify, an older name that I've traded a few years ago. I like this tight area right here. So we had a big gap up on earnings, 68% earnings, 33% on sales. Software is doing good again. We had this nice base. It really broke down. The whole software space was kind of breaking down for a while. And so now, I mean, that's nice. And we're not too far. For those of you that we're only about 2% from kind of this nice area that I would have bought today here. I would have liked to see volume come in more, but I like how the volume kind of dropped in this. Look how low the volume was in this tight little 2 bars here. Man, could have set a nice stop here or low of the day. It's nice. All right, that's all I got. Again, that's 10 names in 10 different areas, but you want to try to stay where performance is. So looking at, we might be in a new uptrend, a new kind of uptrend. So that's why I'm showing off the lows, right? But at the same time, you can also look at kind of across multiple time frames, and it's still computer hardware is still there. We still have some of those oil and gas, some of those old medical areas, hardware, equipment, parts we just looked at. There's biotech, even semis is still pretty high up the list. So we have software in here. So you want to be, again, you want to try to be in the stronger industry groups. All right, that's all I got for tonight. Let me know if you have any questions. You can also send me a message on Substack, but take care.